Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And so today, I'm finally going to review Boosh, The Burning God by RF Kuang. This is book 3 in the Poppy War Trilogy and the concluding volume. And as I've said in 2 videos already, I didn't love this book. I didn't love it. Because it was not the conclusion that I expected or the conclusion that I really wanted. I really do understand why many, and most people who have read this really like The Burning God. But for me, it just didn't work. So much had been built up from the Poppy War and the Dragon Republic that I was just expecting more. I'm going to talk in non-spoilers to start with, but then I can't really describe everything that bothered me without spoilers. So I'll let you know when the spoilers are coming. But if you just want to know what I thought about it, be warned that this is the 3rd book in a trilogy, so anything I say now is going to spoil what happened at the end of Poppy War and Dragon Republic. So just be warned there too. So we join Ren after having been betrayed by the Dragon Republic, and it's her and Kate who have allied with the South, and so she is trying to get this peasant army. She's trying to get the much more numerous but more poor Southerners into kind of a fighting force to deal with the Dragon Republic once they're done conquering, once they're finished conquering kind of like the Imperials, Daji and the rest of the war in the north. They know that Nezha and Viceroy are going to turn south and go deal with them. And so guys, my main issue with this is that there's all that war going on with the Imperials and Nezha and Viceroy, but we don't see any of it. We follow Rin, and that's it. This book, more than either of the last 2, would have benefited from Nezha POV chapters. We are so cut off from the rest of the world in this book, and the war interests me. This is why, if you're in it for Rin and you're trying to follow Rin's journey, that's fine. You're probably going to love this book. But if the overall plot about the war is interesting to you, well, we miss every single part that Rin's not a part of. And it was just really disappointing. It was just really disappointing. I just kept wanting Kuang to turn the focus, show us what's happening with the war in the north. All these events keep trickling down. Oh, this guy died. They took over this place. Oh, this happened. They were pushed back in here. And it's just reported. And it's just like, that's boring. Like, what happened to things that, like, characters who were in like the first 2 books are just all of a sudden gone and in like a line of dialogue, and it's just like, oh well, I guess that ended with a whimper. And so that was really frustrating to me. There are also some pacing problems in this book, and if you've watched either of my other reviews about the Poppy Wars, the pace is just relentless for both the Poppy War and the Dragon Republic, barring the Sorkin Sira. The pacing here is all weird. The book opens, part 1 is Rin and the Southerners, they're doing like village to village liberation, which is really cool. It's actually a really realistic portrayal of going from village to village and freeing them one at a time from, an occupying force. But it happens multiple times, and it just is really slow. Like, that opening part was just really slow for me. And then part 2, it looks like we have a larger goal, and it's really slow as well. And then part 3 is too fast. And I was just like, what? Like, the pacing is just kind of all over the place. We don't get all those side characters that we got in Poppy War and in the Dragon Republic. And so it's really just Rin and Kate, and it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. We do get to see, we know that Rin is based off what if Mao was a teenage girl, and we do get to see that. I do enjoy the parts where we see Rin and the peasant army and the kind of starvation that they have to go through, the same way that Mao's rebel army did. So guys, for me, The Burning God just is missing so many of the things that I really enjoyed from the first 2 books, that it was fine, and I enjoyed reading it. Like, the Poppy War is so good that even this entry that I didn't really like all that much was I mean, it still was nothing bad. It's just compared to the other two, it wasn't my favorite for sure. Hands down, my least favorite of the trilogy. So guys, I'm going to talk about spoilers now. So if you haven't read it, you're going to want to dip out, because all of my other issues I have to address via spoilers. So we begin the book with Rin has lost her hand from escaping from Viceroy's prisons, and so she has this other reason to just be enraged. It's this constant reminder that she can't use her sword hand. But what I do like is that her link with Kate does give her a reason to fight that isn't just pure rage. And so that starts off pretty well. Like, I do like that. And as they're freeing village, going from village to village, liberating those small villages. And so moving from village to village, we see Rin is learning, she's learning how to command. She was always following. Remember, the Dragon Republic is her being used, her being wielded like a weapon, and here she is trying to take her own responsibility. This is all stuff that I like. She's learning her command with and people under her are seasoned veterans who don't want to listen to anything she has to say. And so all of that's really good as she learns the nuances of war, that war isn't just won by running out and just setting everybody on freaking fire. And through this part one and liberating these villages, we also see the danger, or maybe not, of compromise and compliance when it comes to being occupied by a hostile force. Is it better to resist until the last soldier is dead? Or is it better to just try to survive by compromising and giving in to the occupiers? And so Burning God starts off really well, like dealing with this. I thought the village to village thing was just a little bit repetitive and a little slow, but I was liking the things that it was exploring. See, things like the destruction of war, winning the war and destroying things, that's the easy part, but surviving in the after effects, that's the hard part. All I could hear in my head was, "Dying is easy, young man. Living is harder." From Hamilton. Get him, Washington. Ren needs to listen to Washington.
Dying is easy. Young man, living is harder.
I also really like that Ren, even more so than she had to in the Poppy War when she, does the boom. She has to attribute monster status to every Muganese she comes across. She cannot live with herself and deal with the guilt and all of that knowledge of the pain and suffering she's causing unless she makes every single Muganese, man, woman, and child, a monster. So she can't make exceptions for, Muganese toddlers or, Muganese women who had nothing to do with it. Every one of them is a monster. Otherwise, she has to really kind of wrestle morally with what she's doing. And so all of that I really, really liked. And then we start running into some problems. First of all, Kate really isn't that big of a genius. Like, we're told that Kate is this brilliant, tactician genius. His plans, he's really kind of a glorified Leonardo da Vinci. Like, he invents the flying thing in Dragon Republic, but he's constantly being told by others, like, hey, your plan isn't gonna work. And I thought you're the genius, Kate. So there's that. The constant resetting of Rin's power for narrative purposes is annoying. Like, it happens in Dragon Republic where she gets the seal, and here it happens again where her power keeps getting hamstrung because Kuang can't have her be super powerful for the whole book. It's power creep. She has to address the power creep. And it just becomes so obvious that it's a narrative device. And I'm like, we just did this in Dragon Republic. Why are we doing this again? One of my biggest issues with this book, and really this may be why it was such a struggle for me, is the Hesperians aren't in this book. And that alone is why I'm dying for these other viewpoints. The Hesperians were built up as such this brilliant evil force that they just think that they're in the right. They look down on the Muganese and the frickin' Nikari for just being uncivilized savages, right? And then they're the white saviors gonna come and bring them into the modern era with both technologically, scientifically, and religiously. And they were just infuriating to hate with their smug arrogance and, you know, how horrible it is that they're not going to stop with, they go to the city in Burning God and they can't even recognize it as a Nikari city because all of the Nikari they're dressing like Hesperians, and the city has architecture like Hesperians and Hesperian technology, and it's as if they're not Nikari at all, except for their appearance. And so just even seeing that discussion of cultural erasure and the horrors of erasing an entire culture because you think you're superior to them, that is one of my favorite parts of exploring in the Dragon Republic. And then they're not there. The Hesperians aren't there. They're mentioned and then they leave and they have some blimps. We don't see any Hesperians except for the one interaction Rin has with Sister Petra when she's exacting her revenge. And I'm so mad that the freaking Hesperians aren't in this bleeding book. And that is probably the biggest source of my discontent, is just the setting up of the Hesperians in book 2, and then the complete disregard for the Hesperians as villains in book 3. It's as if they're not there. Like, other complaints, dodgy, like, the whole triad storyline. It's not even called the triad, it's called the trifecta, which is just a weird name because the trifecta is accomplishing 3 things. It comes from facere factus, which means to do, or to make. So a trifecta is really doing 3 things. I always want to call them the triad because that's what 3 people, anyway, it doesn't matter. The trifecta storyline seemed like it was going somewhere, but then it's like, well, why is this even Ren's book? Because we're really just going to rely on these 3 who are way, way, way more powerful. And book 2 is all about freeing the Dragon Emperor so the trifecta can do something. And then, so we have this long drawn out part 2 where Ren's army is starving. That part's cool. But then we've got Daji and Zhang, who, one, I don't understand why Daji just doesn't use her power on every single person that she comes across, because they haven't said, there's no indication that the trifecta has any kind of limitation on their power. And then they free the Dragon Emperor, and then everything collapses, they all die. I felt so, like, not cheated, but just like bait and switched, that I dealt with the entire length of part 2, only to have it end like that. And it's just like, oh, well, none of that even mattered. There was no purpose. It felt like the only reason we did that was because Kuang once again had power creep and had to get rid of these superpowers. It just didn't feel natural. It didn't feel like it served a purpose. Not to mention right after that, with the whole Sorkin Sierra plot where where Chagon's cousin killed the Sorkin Sierra and was gonna take over. That's resolved in a paragraph. Chagon appears out of nowhere, says, hey, yeah, I stopped that guy. You should not go free the Dragon Emperor. Done. And that's it. That's all Chagon does in this book. Did that not sit right with anybody else, any of you guys? And so that middle 400 pages, guys, I was bored to tears. Nothing freaking happens. It was not my favorite at all. There's a lot of time jumps in this book that, it's jumped ahead months or weeks, and it doesn't really tell you, and so there's a moment of jarring, what just happened? Oh, we're ahead in time? Okay, I guess, that's fine. And the loyalty changes, guys. The jumping, oh, I'm your enemy, oh, now I'm your friend, oh, now, there is so much, jumping around, loyalty changing, and guys, none of it's worse than Nezha himself. When you guys read this, did any of y'all feel that Nezha just didn't actually have a personality? Because it seemed like he had multiple personalities. Nezha just does he's just all over the map with his characterization in this book. He's the taunting supervillain. Now he's the reluctant enemy who used to be friends. Now he's kind of offering the olive branch. Now he's just the dutiful son that has to do this. He's just all these different personalities that... What is with the taunting? I don't understand Nezha's endgame or why he was written this way, because nothing of the characterization we got from Nezha in book 2, which was his character development, feels like it panned out in this one. Nezha was just a mess in this. After part 3, after the slog that is part 2, part 3 just seems like it goes way, way, way too fast. Rin has to train shamans, and it seems like it's way, way too easy. Like, it's not, like, it just seems like... It just seems too convenient, like, oh, well, you've seen me use magic, so you know magic exists, so now it's easy. I mean, I just don't buy it. There's, again, a bunch of loyalty changing and side shifting that is way too abrupt. It seems like Kuang had way too many ideas for this book and just didn't flesh them out. I would have been fine with another 200 pages tacked onto this book if it fleshed out part 3. Everything happens so freaking quickly, from the shaman's training to them winning the war. And it's just like, Rin does actually very little. There's even some weird thing where, like, when she wins and they're like, oh, well, don't destroy the Hesperian ships that are running in the harbor. I thought her range was 50 yards. And she can destroy all the ships from the wall of the city? I don't, that's inconsistent. Like, the whole purpose that she doesn't just burn every city they come to is that she has range. So, like, and they're also like, well, Nezha's suicidal for not leaving. He's surrounded by water in a city, like, I don't understand, but Rin doesn't really do anything. It's other people that do stuff. It's her shamans that do things. It's the trifecta that do things. On page 528, she has a quote that really sums up this book. I didn't do that. I didn't do anything. And that's pretty much this book. Rin, in this book, to me, feels very much like a puppet of everything around her. Like, she is our camera lens through which we view all of these other things that are happening by other people to other people, and she's just kind of there. And guys, while I understand the ending, and I like the ending, I like her descent into madness, the same way Mao went insane with the Cultural Revolution and started killing all of his allies. Like, I love her paranoia, and it happens way too fast. All of a sudden, Rin is turning on turning on Kate. Like, are you kidding me? It happens way too fast. That would have been my favorite part of the book, watching her deal with victory, because the ones who win the wars are often not the ones who need to be governing it. Look at Ulysses S. Grant, the drunk. Like, he was not a fantastic president, even though he wins the Civil War for the Union. It's just, that would have been so fun to explore, but it just happened so fast. All of a sudden, she starts losing her mind, and then before you know it, she has to kill herself and Kate so that the country can govern itself. And I'm left at the end wondering, what was the point of this book? And I know it sounds it's not a rant review, because I don't hate this book. There were so many good ideas in this book, and this trilogy is excellent. This is on my top 10 series of all time right now because it's so good. But this third book just had so many misses for me. The Hesperians are gone. We didn't get to see anything. Nezha's gone like that out of nowhere with his weird, like, dissociative identity disorder. No idea. Like, they beat him with no problem. Rin goes insane like that, and it's over. And then, like, in a paragraph, she realizes that she has to kill herself and Kate for the country to exist. Like, there's just no exploration of the stuff that happens in book 3 or part 3. And it's so frustrating. We did not need 200 pages of going from village to village liberating the South. We certainly didn't need 300 pages of the frickin' trifecta starving march to the mountain. I'm so frustrated because of what this book could have been, of what I wanted it to be, of just, it could have been just so amazing, at least to me. And I know so many people like this book. I completely understand why you do. If you're following Rin's journey and that's what's important, I can understand. But Rin just seems so, like, tangential to the actual plot of this book that I was just left holding the bag and feeling disappointed. So, on the Kingpin approval system, I give this book an excellent. It was an excellent read. It wasn't a superb read for me just because of my frustration, but it was an excellent read. Out of 5 stars, I give this book 3 stars. Even though I ranted a lot about this, the series, what what the series brought to it, just the series as a whole. This book is buoyed by what the other two books had done. I think this book on its own I would have enjoyed significantly less, very similar to kind of Rage of Dragons. But I did enjoy this book because of it was the closing out of this fantastic trilogy. So I give it 3 stars. Should you read it? Yeah. If you read the first 2, just read the third book. I mean, just read the third book. I'm looking at you, Sam, who has read the first 2 but not the third book. Just read it. So guys, what did you think of The Burning God? Did it bother you that the Hesperians weren't in this book the way it bothered me? I'm sure there's some of you out there who felt the same way I did, even though most of you really, really enjoyed this book. I've seen people talking about how this book is their favorite, and that's fine. That's totally okay. Guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the descriptions, and I'll see you next time, guys.